All right, we are back from the break. This will be part two of Dustin's personal story here. So, Dustin, thanks for walking us through kind of start to finish your upbringing, meeting your wife, getting married, overcoming some serious challenges with cancer and things like that, and ultimately becoming parents. And so, in this part, what we'd like to do is start a little bit at the beginning in the uniqueness of your upbringing in that whole dynamic, and get into kind of the lessons learned and things maybe you're realizing now as a dad that you didn't learn earlier on, that we can kind of dive into. So I think Justin actually has a good question to maybe kick off that whole topic here for us.
Yeah. We were neighbors, and there was things I didn't know about you that I thought, I knew everything about you because we were so close. So how long were you a spy for, and why didn't you tell me? One, and no, all joking aside, like what you said you had to keep secrets. Can you elaborate a little bit on what that was like and how that affected you throughout life and fatherhood and things like that?
So I don't think I had to keep secrets. I think I'd just gotten in the habit of it. And this is not just me. I think a lot of men, for whatever reason, aren't comfortable sharing. It's requires some vulnerability. Maybe my friends will laugh at me or think I'm less of a person, or maybe I'll hurt someone's feelings. That's usually if I don't tell the whole truth to someone, it's because I don't want to hurt their feelings. So it's kind of a lie by omission in that regard. So I think when any kind of major part of your life does have to be kept, a secret to some extent, you just develop that skill where you say, okay, well, this is just easier to not talk about it. And so I'm just going to keep that to myself. And I think it led me to not have as much energy as I could have, not have as much creativity as I could have, because I was spending that energy and that creativity on this useless task of trying to keep track of, various things that I was not being completely honest, about. And so that was a really important learning thing for me, was to understand that this is for me. This isn't for other people, that you just tell the truth. I mean, being honest with other people is a great thing and it's beautiful, but the main benefit of being honest with other people is that it frees you to be the person you want to be. Uh, and so as I've gotten older, I think this is the decade where I really know that I'm going to be my fully authentic self and just tell people how it is. And it's so much more satisfying. It's so much easier because I don't have to impress anybody anymore. I'm kind of in that stage of my life where I'm pretty successful. I've got a lot of good things going for me. I've got great friends that I respect. I have a network of other men who are also respected and powerful. I mean, this is an amazing decade for if you're in this era where, we're kind of 35 to 45 age, this is where we might have the biggest impact on the world, on ourselves. This is your biggest earning years. And that feels great. That is a powerful feeling to, and you can be honest about that and project and be confident and say, this is who I am. I'm kind of a big deal, in that regard. And so, it is a little bit easier when who you are is already, I mean, you guys are pretty impressive men. And so when you're already, pretty impressive, why would I be dishonest and try to be even more impressive and make things up? There's no need for that because you're already awesome. And so, building a life to where you have that kind of confidence and to where you feel good about what you've done, you're proud of your family, you're proud of your work, you're proud of your creative endeavors. I'm so proud of our podcast. It's grown incredibly. We're reaching a ton of people. It's really exciting, and it's a huge source of pride for me. I love talking about it. People can tell my eyes light up when I give them the business card and I go, hey, scan the QR code, like and subscribe. And it's the best feeling. And there's nothing
That's
to
actually
hide
how we
there.
have all our subscribers, is because Dustin's so big. He just, manipulates people to do it now, or else we are a mafia here.
So this is a true story. I was in a
You're the
room.
muscle.
Yes, yeah, I'm the heavy. Yeah, I was in a room. We were waking up a patient, and I laughed and I pulled out some business cards and I said, "All right, I'm not waking this patient up until you guys subscribe to the podcast." And they were like, "Wait, really?" And I said, "Kind of kidding, but I'm kind of not." They're like, "Oh, you're the worst." They all subscribe, and then patient woke up, and it was good. I just did that the one time. I promise.
That's funny.
Yeah.
On a serious note, bring it back. What I hear you saying though is that this, whether it was like a defense mechanism or just a habit or whatever, you kind of having all these secrets and having to like keep up, like, who did I tell this and that, and like what's not, it really cut you off from having genuine, deep friendships or deeper friendships, and brotherhood. Is that an accurate assessment?
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I still, had great friends, and they were small little things. Like I never lied about anything major. It would just be like little things I didn't want to talk about. If I was going to be late to something or whatever, I just wouldn't kind of tell the whole truth. And so I think, I'm not very good at lying. Like, it's not, thankfully, it's not like this amazing skill that I have. And so
Right.
it was kind of obvious, like, all right, he's kind of holding something back, but it's not that big of a deal. Like, whatever, I'm not going to worry about it.
You are good at presenting yourself, though, as somebody who's always happy and jolly and just infectious to be around, even though you're hiding, things beneath the surface. Like, and there's other people that, probably can tell that. Like, I feel like I was one of those people, but I feel like you do a very, very good job of like not let people see what's, brewing under the surface, so to speak.
You're an empath, Justin. Yeah, you can definitely read that. And that is dishonest, right? If you're very unhappy one day, it's not the worst thing to put on a brave face and, try to be nice to people, but it's not 100% honest.
Time and place.
Yeah, right.
Can't be like breaking down at work all day,
Yeah, for sure.
Especially when you're dealing in the medical field, like you need to be making sure the patient stays alive. But
correct. Yeah.
I think we're saying in like the right circles, right? Like when you're not having to be on, quote unquote, you can kind of let your guard down, right?
And
so
all three of you. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so like you identified the problem and now you're learning it or have learned it. How much different are things for you now versus before you really kind of embraced that concept?
I'm a lot happier. It's a lot easier to have relationships, to speak to other people, and I'm more creative now. I really do find unique and interesting things that I wasn't finding when I was younger because I have this extra creative energy that's not being wasted on, keeping track of who I told what, and that's been amazing. I'm really excited, like I said, about this decade. I think it's going to be a lot of fun because I have that extra creative energy. As men, we have so much to give that if we're only able to give 20 or 30%, that might feel like enough. I mean, if you're a really competent person, you can give 20, 30% of yourself and waste the other 70% on, some men have a porn addiction. Some men have, something in their closet they don't want to talk about. And they're able to kind of hide that and keep it to themselves and still function and do okay. But imagine if they had that other 70% of that energy to just put into their endeavors and give to the world and be their authentic self. And that's what I feel like my 40s are going to be. And I'm really excited about that.
So you have all these traits that you've adapted to and you've created through your experience. But one of them that stands out for me that I've seen be an insatiable part of your life, with whether it's your medical field, like getting all those certifications, getting through med school, becoming Quadzilla. I mean, all these different things that you've done, right? The gym. You have this just extreme amount of discipline. Where did you acquire that discipline? Because most men acquire that from like a dad with a hard work ethic or a father figure. Like, did you have father figures in your life that did that? Or was that something you developed through just having survival mechanism? Like, I'm curious where you got your discipline trait from.
My grandfather is my model for that. He is 90 years old and he's the Energizer Bunny. The man will not stop. He hasn't retired. He continues to manage hundreds of millions of dollars of his clients' funds. And he gets about 6 hours of sleep, and then he gets up and he rides his bike and he reads the Wall Street Journal. And I mean, the man is a sponge. I don't know many 90-year-olds. He's like Charlie Munger or Warren Buffett as far as, his mind is so sharp. And I don't think I'm going to be that smart when I'm his age, but as far as a model of someone who's a true Renaissance man, just incredible knowledge in so many different areas. He really taught me a lot of what I wanted to be. And he always told me I could be whatever I wanted and that I was really special. And he does the same for Lucas. Seeing my my son with his great grandfather and the way they interact is so special. It's just really amazing. I think the guy's going to be around another 20 years. He's like unkillable because he's obsessed with his health. He's been eating healthy and not smoking and, not drinking very much since, he was born in like the 20s. Like nobody was like that. They just, smoked like chimneys and like didn't worry about that kind of stuff. He was that
World
like
War II, they issued, I think it was like 8 packs a day or it's some ridiculous number to every soldier on the line, man. Like literally a carton of cigarettes, like almost daily or something.
Yeah.
So,
and
yeah, it was a different time.
Yeah. And he was that weirdo that didn't smoke and, really took care of his health, and he's ripping the rewards of it now. He's got like 100 grandkids or something that, running around and all that. And he loves it.
Not to break to, something monotonous, but just to let you know, cigarettes back then were made completely different than they are nowadays. They're so much deadlier these days than they were back in World War II.
Still probably wasn't great that everyone was like smoking like a chimney
it's
just
amazing,
on the reg.
Yeah, that discipline saved his life, essentially.
I think so. Yeah. And he worked on railroad section gangs and, was as broke as you could possibly be. He's a little bit of a hoarder because he did grow up during the Depression. And like, if you had like a toy, like you had a toy and nobody else had that, and you like took care of that because that was going to be your one toy you were going to have for the next like 2 years. So now he's got a basement full of toys. And he's like, nobody's going to take them from me. But, I think that kind of restless energy, that intellectual excitement, that creativity, I've always seen it from him. He's always on and excited and ready to learn new things and take on the day. And that was my model. And I said, okay, this is my blood, and this is what I'm going to do. And I can thank him for that, for giving me that model to understand how much fun it is to be kind of a restless intellectual like he is.
Hey there. We hope you're enjoying this episode of the Present Fathers Podcast. Our mission is to reach as many men as possible and equip them to be excellent family leaders. We believe that by inspiring and equipping men, we can change bloodlines and positively impact our culture. You can join us on this mission and partner with us today by doing one of two things. First, go to your favorite podcast platform, whether that's YouTube videos or Apple or Spotify, Google, etc., and leave us a review. The way the algorithm works is that it really values reviews, and this helps promote our stories to get them out to more people. The second way you can help is by sharing your favorite episodes with friends and family. Help us get the word out so that we can make a difference in our culture. Thank you for watching, and we hope that you join us in our mission to change lives.
That's awesome.
Dustin, something we've talked about a lot, just kind of in passing, and you hit on it a little bit already with talking about how what you want to pass on to your son is knowing how to do things, like fix things, and just some of the general like manly quote unquote type things that just feels like you should know how to do. But on the other side of that same coin, a little bit, like you were raised predominantly by women, and you've shared in passing with me too that kind of like you feel that you missed out on learning key elements of like what a man is, what it means to be a man. Not a full dimensional, it's kind of like one dimensional, your understanding of it for a long time. And even how you viewed marriage, right? Because of the way that you were brought up, you kind of just figured marriage wasn't maybe the greatest idea always. So what are some of those lessons that you've learned now? You've kind of seen the stark contrast of how you used to think and how different it is now in your marriage and as a father, and really kind of the advice for maybe guys who have similar upbringings where they didn't really feel like they had great masculine role models to teach them what a good man is comprehensively. Just kind of expand upon that, and any words of wisdom from Dustin based off your experience.
So like Brandon, I went and found books that filled those holes. I knew that I didn't necessarily have this obvious role model of, okay, I'm just going to do exactly what I see here. And so I went and I found books. I had a psychology background from college. And so I expanded upon that and said, okay, I've seen some things what not to do. What am I going to do differently, and how do I avoid these pitfalls? And I found some incredible resources. Dr. Willard Harley, who you guys were lucky enough to interview. I was stuck on a flight. Not bitter about that at all. Doesn't hang with me or bother me or any of that kind of stuff.
It's okay. We interviewed your personal hero for you. Okay? So
I could not
we had your back. Okay.
And I could not
Be
think of
grateful.
3. That's right. I'm so grateful. Yeah, exactly. So, reading His Needs, Her Needs was incredibly beneficial. And I found some books that were not helpful. It's interesting. A lot of relationship books are not helpful. And so our world is very interesting. There was kind of the 1984 situation where censorship, right? Where you don't get to know anything. But then there was also the Brave New World situation, like Aldous Huxley, which I think was more prescient, where there's so much information that the diamonds in the rough are hidden in plain sight, and all the junk and the crazy information out there that's not helpful is just bombarding you constantly. And so one of the most important skills that I want to teach my son is how to filter out bad information and how to focus and find the good stuff, because that, as modern men, is the hardest thing in the world for us right now, is to filter. The information's out there. The information, how to have a good life, how to be successful, it's all there. You have to tune out the noise, though, and that's not easy. So, as far as tuning out the noise, that's something that I want to teach my son. And I really think that it was finding some gems, some really good books that were able to kind of teach me and practice, and having someone that I was married to that was willing to work with me on it and say, okay, let's learn about this. How do we make this better? I was really honest with Kim. I said, look, my dad wasn't around. That's kind of my model. I don't want that to be us. 50% of marriages end in divorce. Let's be the other 50%. So we know what not to do. Now let's figure out what to do. And so I've talked about this before, the concept of via negativa. Sometimes it's easier to learn from bad things and what not to do than it is to learn, from those good things. When I was training for anesthesia, I learned the most from people who were really bad at the job. And, maybe in some ways I learned the most about relationships from people who had really bad relationships. These people are yelling at each other all the time. Let's not yell. He hit her. That ended the relationship. I mean, it's like, that's kind of a weird example, but like, that's pretty basic, right? Like, don't do that. And so much of successful relationships is what you don't do, versus what you do, because you can mess up a year of wonderful behavior with a couple of nights of really bad behavior, and so a big part of successful work, successful marriage, all that is not doing, some really basic things.
Yeah, man.
Yep.
Sometimes just avoiding it is just avoiding the argument lets you cool off enough to not say the thing you would have regretted. It's definitely a valid point. If you could go back, Dustin today could go back to maybe, 10-year-old version of yourself and give you a piece of advice, what would that be? Because you talk about going to books. Was there anything else that maybe like, I wish I would have done that a little bit different?
Don't focus so much on grades. I was obsessed with getting that A, with getting that 100%, with being the best in the class. We would do around the world, 7 times 8, I'd be raising the hand, 56. I had to win. I had to succeed and be the best. And I was so academically rigorous. And if I'd taken 10% of that effort and put it into some other things, like learning about music, learning to paint, learning to fix a car, stuff that I'm just atrocious at. Like, if I'm top 1% with academics, I'm bottom 1% with fixing cars, and so be someone who's a little better rounded. And I'm very, very good at some things and I'm really bad at other things. And I wish that I was able to turn that around to where I was a little bit better at and so I think that'll be another thing. I like to think in decades. I like to think, okay, what are my 40s going to be like? And I think some of that is going to be shoring up some weaknesses. And targeting some things that I know I'm not very good at. I'm not always present. I've got a million things I'm working on. I want to do podcast edits. I want to work out. I want to, respond as quickly as possible to Elon Musk on Twitter to get some impressions, just the stupid stuff. Right. So, rather than doing that, I want to be present with my family, with my son. And I want to be a better father in that regard. So if that's a weakness, I want to shore that up and get better at that kind of stuff. So that would be the advice I'd give to 10-year-old Dustin is 1, buy Bitcoin as soon as you can. and 2, don't worry about being, top of the class. get the good grades, learn the material, be good at it. But it's going to be okay if you're number 2 academically, because it's not going to matter when you get older.
Yeah.
Okay, so the grades thing's fascinating me. Was this like a thing for acceptance? Like, were you chasing acceptance? What were you chasing after when you did that?
Psychoanalyze yourself, Dustin. I genuinely don't think that's what it was about. I think I was very, very good at academics. I'm still the only 7th grader, I think, to get every single question right on the Florida Math League. They've been doing it for like 60 years. And it's like a 100-question test. And I got all 100 right, and nobody had ever done that before. And I don't think anyone has since. And then I peaked. I was terrible at calculus, but I was really good at algebra. For some reason, I was like an algebra idiot savant. It was.
I didn't realize we were in the presence of a real mathlete. This is a new. See, it's keeping secrets. You've just been holding back from us, bro. It's still you're not over it yet.
Well, I didn't want to flex on you that hard.
Okay.
You know, I mean, being a mathlete.
I think you're a very generous person, and I think you just know that I'm so bad at math. You didn't want to make me feel bad. So
exactly.
I appreciate your kindness in this moment.
And so when you're good at something, you want to continue doing it. It's satisfying. It feels good. And so I think that's where some of that obsession came from. And, grades I don't want to tell you grades don't matter, but they're not a great indication of learning. That they're not great for creativity. If I'd put some of that energy, if I'd thought, okay, school is important and I want to do well, but play the game and learn some other things outside of that, I think I would have enjoyed it a little more, and I might have been more successful. I mean, we'll never know, but if 10-year-old Dustin had shored up those weaknesses a little bit and done some other things, I think he would have been happier and maybe a little more successful.
So you talk about creativity. Are there some things that you're doing to kind of broaden the horizon for Lucas? And is there anything specifically that you think he's going to get to experience in his lifetime that none of us will get to, that you're just excited for?
There's so much, and I can't even begin to predict what it's going to look like. He's 4. I think he's going to live to be over 100. I think most kids who are 4 who take decent care of themselves will. So he's going to have a completely different financial life. He's not going to retire at 60. I mean, if he wants to, he can, but he can work and be healthy probably into his 80s. He is going to see, I think, life become interplanetary. I think there are going to be people living and working on Mars by the time he's 50. That would not surprise me at all. If you look at the scale of what SpaceX is doing, they're putting out like a ridiculous number of rockets and all that. I mean, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. So that's going to be amazing. He's literally going to see people on Mars, and he'll probably be able to talk to them too. He'll be able to tweet at them if he wants. That's going to be interesting.
Interplanetary Starlink. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be MiFi up there, not Wi-Fi.
Yeah. I think he's going to learn to leverage artificial intelligence to have access to a new kind of way of thinking. I think right now I'm pulling different ideas from my brain and from my memory and putting it together. And I think he's going to potentially be able to think and communicate with people in different ways. And I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. And it may happen to us. There's a decent chance that we live long enough to see some of these interesting things happen. He's not going to ever need to drive a car if he doesn't want to. It's all going to be driverless. He'll have the option to. People will still want to drive because it's fun, but he won't need to. So that'll be cool if he wants to read a book instead of having his hand behind the wheel. I mean, that'll be an interesting, kind of change. And I don't think he'll have to work in the same way we do. I think a lot of manual labor jobs, a lot of trucking, a lot of those kinds of things will be taken over by automation. And so I think more humans will be focused on creative jobs. There'll be artists. There'll be Instagram influencers. I hope not too many of those, but I think it's going to be a really different kind of world.
You brought up a great point with the AI stuff. So synthesis schools, for example, with like SpaceX, Elon, all the guys that are creating that. Have you thought about, putting him into that at early stages just to try to have him thinking more logically and more adaptive than, say, your conventional school stuff is going to do for him?
So it's funny. I shot the founder of Synthesis School at DM last month, and I said, "Hey, my son's 3. What's the age where I should jump into this, and what should I do to prepare him for this? Because it's for age 7 and up." So I said, and for you guys who don't know, they it's from the SpaceX team. They basically created I think it's called Ad Astra. It was like a special SpaceX school. And that was like part of the team that created this new AI tutoring system and teaching and all this stuff. It's fascinating. They're going to be a really big deal in the education space in a couple of years. I think they're going to disrupt some interesting things. And, I think by the time Lucas is 7, he's going to have a pretty good AI tutor who's going to be able to teach him some really interesting things. And I don't think it'll be as good as having like Jeeves, who's there, well, Lucas, let's learn about the Roman Empire, but it's going to be really good. So anyway, so I DM'd him and I said, what should I do? And he laughed and he said, wrestle with him, play with him, and have fun. Basically don't take school too seriously. The same thing that I was talking about. Don't try to impress on your 4-year-old how important it is to learn the alphabet and all this kind of stuff. Because guess what? They're going to hate it because Dad doesn't want to play with me right now. He just wants to force me to learn this boring stuff. That's how you stop creativity. That's how you stop that connection, is you try to force your kids to do something they don't want to do. But when you teach them games, when you sing songs with them, when you learn together in fun ways, that's how you get it done. So yeah, he was great. He said, yeah, wrestle, play games and have fun, and talk to me when he's 7.
I was going to say, there is one thing that
That's
you
funny.
can teach him, just, because Spock, he had the whole AI training him. You can just teach him to live long and, he'll be good. Give him a little nerd sign, little gang sign, early gang sign. So
Yeah, in Florida, of all places.
Yeah.
So to kind of reiterate and just kind of go back to my question, like, what are you doing creatively to kind of nurture, where you want him to end up? Because I know I believe I've seen on some of your socials that you guys do, like, stargazing and, all that stuff. Do you guys have like a telescope? Is there things that you're kind of doing since you live in a local place like your SpaceX? Like, can you kind of go into that a little bit?
I take him to rocket launches whenever I can. Kim was kind of mad at me last night because it was like 8:30. It was a little past his bedtime. And I was like, we've got to go. This is a Falcon Heavy. You don't get to see these very often. She said, all right, fine. So we drive to the beach. There's nobody there. It's like empty. It was unbelievable. I thought it was going to be packed, and we pretty much had the place to ourselves. So we got on the beach. The moon was bright and incredible, so we were playing, watching that. He got to see this amazing launch, and I'm just trying to fill him with wonder and excitement and love for learning, and
Yeah.
I'm very guilty sometimes of doing the opposite and saying, Lucas, you have to do this. You have to learn in a certain way. And he shuts down immediately, has no interest. He's the most creative, receptive, loves to learn, loves to read.
All kids are.
Oh, it's wonderful.
We all do what you just described. No, focus on this, do this, or stop messing around.
And we shut that down. And honestly, I look at it later, and the stuff that I'm mad at him for is literally him learning to like get better with his hands, or like, he'll be the Nick Freitas situation. He'll be in the kitchen messing around trying to learn stuff. And I'm telling him, you just made a mess. And literally he was about to learn how to cook something. And I took that away from him, so if there's a lesson I can, teach myself and teach other dads, let your kids go make the mess and learn, and clean up after them later. It's not that big of a deal. If the house is a little messy and it takes you 5 minutes to clean up, that's them learning and leveling up, and their little neurons firing.
Just let them be. Let them do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's really, we have to train ourselves to be comfortable with a temporary, mess. And that's really what it is. It's just our own personal need to like keep things orderly or whatever, right? That's what actually takes over. And so it seems almost like an innocent good thing. And it so quickly turns into, then we go like so, puritanical about, put your things away or whatever. It's like, well, okay, but you kind of just missed a big opportunity, right? And I'm super guilty of this all the time. But
I know.
Yeah. What I was gonna say is I will layer in the video of that launch that you've been describing.
Oh yes, please do.
Right now in this episode. So as we're talking, you can see it real quick. I'll mute the sound on it, but that way people can see what you've been describing and kind of what your son gets to see all the time at such a young age. It's super incredible. I mean, I remember as kids, right? Like us growing up here on this, how many launches happened in our lifetime? Like a few. when we were
Not a
kids.
lot.
Like
Yeah.
that's it. It was like one every maybe 5 years,
If that,
and a
maybe
couple
even
of them didn't
10.
go very good. So, yeah, nowadays it's like Lucas is just looking up every other day, boo, 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 rockets. And I mean, we were there to visit you for what, 3 days, and we saw a launch. So it's pretty insane.
Yeah, I checked my phone and I was like, guys, get out of the pool. Go. So we ran, got to the front,
It's
and
crazy.
got to see the rocket launch.
It's fun.
And it is the truth that, I mean, one man can really make that much of a difference. I mean, if you guys remember, just a couple of years ago, the Russians were doing our launches to get to the International Space Station because we didn't have the capacity. NASA had literally lost the ability to get to the space station, and we had to beg our Russian friends to get them up there for us. And, SpaceX allows us to do that ourselves. And I mean, that's amazing. It really is incredible how just one man can change the course of history. We see this over and over. There's this argument is like the great man theory versus like it was going to happen anyway, concept. And I firmly believe that if the, 12 founding fathers of the United States hadn't gotten together in a beer hall and decided we're going to, make these crazy ideas, we're tired of paying taxes on tea, our lives would be very different. And there's some providence on that. Probably there are more than 12. Yeah. But like the main guys that kind of did most of it, but,
yeah, I know you meant.
yeah. And it's amazing that, someone put those people in that place at that time. None of them could have done it by themselves. And they all, it really is interesting when you look at history and you say, how did these people end up in this situation at this perfect time? And I don't think it was, if it hadn't happened like that, there may not have been another opportunity for that to happen later, so
Yeah. It's
cool
a powerful thing to let your son see, and not actually just history happening, but seeing a man like Elon and knowing that he can have the same effect on the planet that one other man had. That's a powerful thing to show a kid, hey, anybody can make a difference in this world if they just try hard enough, or they do what they dream. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And one more follow-up to your question. Storytelling is so powerful. So when I try to explain stuff to Lucas and I say, okay, this is how it works, blah, blah, he zones out. He's gone. He has no interest, right? But if I weave it into a story and I say, so his favorite character is a guy named Bob the Scary Dragon. I don't know why. I think I was like really tired one night and I was trying to tell him stories and it was Bob the Scary Dragon. So that's his favorite character. So if Bob the Scary Dragon needs to learn how to drive a car, well then, he's going to challenge Lucas the Brave Knight. And I'll just weave these kind of silly stories together. But that's how I teach him lessons really well. And then I forget that. And I go back to lecturing boring dad and he doesn't listen to me. I get mad and I'm like, why won't you listen to me? And then I remember, let's tell some stories and let's make some fun out of this. And then all of a sudden, it comes back. So there's little tools that I'm learning that are just incredible for, for teaching and for keeping your kids interested and excited and creative. I think I went through a phase when I was a young man where I was not very creative. I was A, B, C, or D. I was very good at, okay, the answer is B, got the Scantron, got the answer. There's no creativity in that. I'm so old, I know.
No, me too. I mean, yeah. Bad memories.
The hanging chads.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. So yeah, I mean, it's all about, telling stories and allowing your kids to figure stuff out on their own. Because if you try to lecture and force a kid to do what you say, it's not going to work. It'll have the opposite effect. They'll just hate you. So have some fun with it, be creative, and let them find their own answers. He'll tell me these answers to things and I'll think about it for a second. That's really creative. Where did you get that from? I love that. So I learned from him quite a bit too. And that's, if you as a dad are open to learning from your kids, we don't know everything. He's taught me so many things. And that's just going to continue leveling up as he gets older.
Well, it's an entirely new interaction you have, right? This is a new role you've never done before if it's your first child. And so if you have to learn new things, and they're not maybe teaching you with their words, but that interaction forces you to learn. So speaking of stories, you've mentioned that your grandfather played a huge role in your life. I'd like you to tell a story about an amazing experience you have with him, or just something that really jumped out and it's like, hey, I've remembered this the rest of my life because it taught me a good lesson.
I remember the first time my grandfather taught me to play tennis. he's the reason that I'm very passionate about tennis. He played college baseball for Michigan State University, and so that was his first love. He still collects a bunch of baseball. He talks about times he met Ted Williams and Joe DiMaggio and all that. He's obsessed with baseball. But as far as his close second, number two, and something you can play with one other person as opposed to needing 18 guys, it's a little bit easier to teach your grandson how to play tennis. So he got me out on the court, and he just has this incredible way with kids. And he's still the same way with Lucas, where it feels like his patience is infinite. I kept hitting balls and knocking him out of the fence and, really didn't know what I was doing. And he just took my hands, put them in the right place, and showed me what to do and taught me and got me through the motions. And I think that was more valuable than 100 tennis lessons. I just immediately leveled up, and I have pro points. Like, I'm a really good tennis player now. So, he was able to give that to me at such a young age. And his voice is in my head sometimes when I'm playing matches. I think of some of the things that he said to me. And so that I'll never forget that special, moment where he took that time, to really teach me and I think he's a big part of the reason that I love sports so much, the competitive element to it. And it's like art for me. It's a form of like physical poetry. It's a really, beautiful feeling. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, again, that feeling of excellence, knowing, okay, I'm pretty good at this. This is something that most people can't do is a really special feeling. And so I'll never forget that he gave that to me.
So good, man.
Yeah, well, I've got the question that we ask every dad, so I know you know it. But what is either like that core memory or that favorite memory that you have with Lucas since you've been a father that just really stands out to you?
So my favorite time with Lucas, and we've heard this from a lot of dads before, is bedtime. It's when they open up. It's when they're starting to get a little bit sleepy. They're a little more receptive. They're a little more huggy. I could hug that kid all day. It drives him crazy. He's like, "Get off of me, Dad. I'm tired of you hugging on me, man." Oh, God, and so, he just kind of naturally snuggles into your arm a little bit while you're talking. And, those moments where you see him get so excited about his book, and, you're reading the story to him, and he wants to tell the story because he remembers some of it. And so now he's telling it and you're telling it together, and you're hugging each other, and you've got this love, and that's just magic. I would do anything I would lay my life down for that kid in a heartbeat, because of that love. And a lot of that's at bedtime. It's a really special time for a lot of dads. So if you're skimping on bedtime, you're missing out. That's the time right there. That's magic hour. I love those bedtime stories.
That is awesome. Well, listen, man, it's hard for us that have had dads our entire lives to relate and to empathize on a deeper level. But I know from you having that personal experience, what advice would you give other men that are coming into fatherhood without having a father in their life? What would be like the first steps you would give for them to start healing and growing to be the best dad that they could be for their kids?
Recognize that it's okay that you don't feel 100% whole. I grew up in a different, kind of environment. I honestly, I kind of told myself, for many years, everything's, it's not any different. I just had a slightly different way of growing up, but I didn't miss out on anything. And, there was some defense, to that as far as, having some self-esteem and feeling like, there wasn't anything I missed out on. But I think recognizing that I had an amazing childhood, and I had a childhood that was better than probably 99% of people growing up. So I'm not resentful. I'm very happy that I had the childhood that I did, but were there some pieces missing? Yes. And so recognizing that you don't have to be resentful or sad, because this can go the opposite direction where you say, "Oh, I'm broken permanently because my dad wasn't around." No, you're not. You're going to be okay. Your mom did a great job. You've got some challenges ahead of yourself, but there's nothing wrong with you. You're just as good a person as someone who had a mom and a dad around. But you've got to work a little bit harder to fix some things that you didn't see, because what you modeled and what you saw is not going to set you up. If your goal is to have a healthy relationship as a dad with a woman, it's not going to be as easy for you as it was for someone who already had that, right? Because it was a little bit more automatic for them. So for me, I had to pick up books. I had to I had to find those good models and relationships and do my best to learn from them. It was a journey for me. And so if you're, a young father or someone who, didn't have your dad around and wants to, you've got to go on that journey. This is your spirit quest. Get the books, level up, talk to one of us, shoot us a message, say, hey, I saw this and I want to learn. I want to figure out where should I start? Get some book recommendations from us. I'll throw it into ChatGPT and send you a summary. If you're not a big reader, that's okay. Get the key points, but you have to work on it. You have to take the time to really learn it. Because if you just gloss over it, it won't happen. You have to get obsessed. You have to dive in and learn how to make that happen.
Wonderful. I love it. Thanks, man.
That's good advice. I'd like to transition a little bit to legacy. So first question, how would you define legacy? And then I'll ask a follow-up to that.
My son is my legacy. Full stop. What he does, what I give him, the traditions that I pass on to him, the love, the knowledge, the feelings of family, of faith, of all the important things that it takes to be successful. That is my legacy.
And the follow-up is, what do you hope he remembers you for? Like way down the road. Say you're on your deathbed. What do you hope to be remembered for?
I hope that he remembers the good times that we had together. And I hope that I don't think there's any specific knowledge necessarily that he'll remember that I passed on to him, because I don't even have my first memory until I was 5 or 6, but did all the time that I spent with him matter? It mattered more than it probably will, when he's 20, because it's not the specific pieces of information that you pass on. It's the love, and it's the safety, and it's the laughter and the play, that I think that's what he's going to remember when I'm on my deathbed and he comes and sees me. He's going to crack a joke and say something about my catheter. I think he's going to be
the people's elbow.
Yes, he'll bring it in, and the nurses will be like, "This is a frail old man. You can't wrestle with him." And I think he's an incredibly playful child. He's very open to meeting other people. He has a little girlfriend, which I'm not super excited about. I'm trying to, kind of, we don't use the, look at, she's your female friend. That's not your girlfriend. Okay. We're not doing that yet. But I hope that's what he has a feeling associated with it. You don't be, oh, my dad was, had the most popular podcast in the world. Like, that's not a big deal. Who cares? Just cause, but, I think those, just manifesting. Let's do this.
You got to speak it into existence. We're only a few subs away from that happening.
No big deal. Yeah,
few downloads. Only a couple. We're close.
But it'll be a feeling, and it'll be a connection, that he feels open to speak with me about anything, and he wants to spend time with me because he knows that I'm worth spending time with, and that there's always a good story, a joke to crack, and that we're always gonna have a good time together.
I like that, man. Especially kind of just with your upbringing too. I think that was what I was kind of hoping you would say, is having that close connection where he wants to be around you, wants to have that relationship with you. I think that's probably the biggest gift you can give him, based off of your upbringing and things you didn't have that you want to pay forward. That's an incredible, quote Nick Freitas again, like you get the chance to just restart you get to choose how it goes from here on forward. So I just want to commend you too for being so intentional about all this stuff, and not making excuses. And yeah, you put your foot in the ground and you're just like, hey, this is what I'm going to do for my son, and my family moving forward. So it's awesome to see, and I'm glad I get to be a small part in your journey and help you as a brother along that path. But beautiful answer, man. Love it.
So let's just say you don't have time, Dustin, and you have, maybe a week. You don't have the end of your life. What would you say to Lucas, and what advice would you give to him?
Man, I'd give him the keys to the crypto so he knows how to get to access to it. That'd be number one. Just kidding, IRS. I lost all my crypto in a boat accident. It's very sad.
Like your guns.
Yeah, I lost them. I don't know. It's so weird.
It's weird.
Yeah. I would impress on him that he is loved and that my voice will be with him, even if I'm not physically here. And, I try to do that even, if I'm gone for a couple of days to work, I do my best to let him know that this is my voice and I can still talk to you. You can hear me anytime you want. This is me. I'm here with you. When we pray together, we have those conversations. You can talk to God in the same way. You can have those conversations with your dad. So that's what I would impress upon him is the love and that voice, is so important. I think, again, you don't remember specifics of when you were 3 years old, but you remember the voice. I can say, "Hey, Lucas," from 100 feet away at the daycare, and he knows, he runs and he's there for me. So that I've imprinted that on him, and he's imprinted it on me. There's 100 kids that could be screaming, and I can pick his voice out. That's weird. That's crazy, right? That because it's all the same, kind of whiny, and I know that's Lucas. I can hear him. So that's a powerful thing for us. We're very auditory people.
Yeah. Knowing your father's voice, isn't that a funny thing when you read it in the Bible too?
Yeah.
So other than your grandfather, who was a hero that just really stood out, that really helped you along, that brought positivity and success in your life?
So from an early age, weightlifting has been very important to me. I think resistance training gives you a kind of confidence, a well-deserved confidence, because it gives you power that you wouldn't otherwise have. That's right. Flex on it. And so the original, there was Jack LaLanne before him, but the guy from my generation who was weightlifting, who was power, who represented the self-made man, someone who started from nothing and took this huge risk, to leave his country. He barely spoke English, and to come to America to pursue his dream, his weird dream of being a bodybuilder. Like, nobody was into that at the time. He kind of legitimized the sport, and he was the best at it. He fought nonstop. He learned from everybody, and he still does. He's a nonstop learner, and he's reinvented himself. I think part of the reason that I think of every decade reinventing myself, I think some of that comes from Arnold Schwarzenegger. He, his 20s were about, and 30s were about being Mr. Olympia. Then his 40s and all that were about, being in the movies and being, the greatest actor. And then it was about politics and being the governor of California. And now it's about passing on. And, part of his legacy is teaching young men like us how to be a little bit better, and how to do the reps, and how to put that work in. So he's a very deeply flawed man. He's made a lot of mistakes. He's said some things that I know he regrets, and I love him for that. I think
he owned it though, right?
Definitely, yeah. He's I think he's repaired his relationship with his kids and with his ex-wife to some extent, and some of the things that he said out of fear and things like that, he's talked about and said that, he's learned from that. And, I think he's someone there's a lot of crotchety old men who are 70 who don't really have any interest in growing. They just want to, relax and drink and, kind of not do much. They're resting on their laurels. And I genuinely hope that when I'm 70, I'm as interested in life as Arnold Schwarzenegger is. I think that's something that I respect about anyone, whether I totally disagree with their politics. I think they're crazy. If they're intellectually curious and they have some desire to make the world a better place, even if it's for totally different reasons, and I think they're a little off in their, their ideas about it, I'm still going to respect them. And I really think it's cool. So he's someone who is, will never stop until they bury that man. He's going to be out there doing speeches, getting his workouts in.
Yeah.
Probably looking at hot women,
Yeah. Well, he's done so much.
Put the cookie
right?
down.
Yeah. He's such a part of our cultural zeitgeist, right?
He
I mean,
is.
Right.
He's an incredible man.
Dude, he
can't
was
say
like
my
the
favorite clip
action
from
hero,
him.
man. You think 90s action movie, 80s action movie, it's like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
There's a couple other guys too, but like,
And then one of the best
It was him and
newsletters right
Sylvester.
now is the Pump Club. I mean, he has the Pump Club where he's encouraged positivity on the internet, which is such a sorely needed thing on social media. And then his new book, which is Be Useful: The 7 Tools for Life, is it's on my reading list, and I've read the first chapter, and it's I'm so excited to finish it. It's incredible.
Get the audiobook, Brandon.
Yeah.
That's one I would say don't bother with the print version. Get the audio because he reads it himself and it's amazing. He's hilarious and
so
awesome.
you get to listen to him.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's great.
I love it. All right. Before we wrap, we have one extremely serious question for you. It's gonna be very difficult to answer, and I don't think that this podcast can exist without a very clear and direct answer to it. So I'm going to pass it over to Justin to ask you this vitally important question.
Oh man, I don't know how I'm gonna ask this, but what's your best dad joke?
Okay. So there's 2 men on a rooftop bar and they're drinking together. And the one man says, "Hey, there's a gust of wind that'll bring you back up safely to the top of this building if you jump off." The other guy says, "No way." So the guy jumps off, swoops down, swoops back up, lands safely. Says, "You're good to go." Bartender's shaking his head, just disgusted. The other guy says, "All right, well, I trust you." Jumps off the building, falls to his death. Bartender says, "Superman, you are such an asshole when you drink."
Oh boy. All right. Well, we got that very serious question taken care of.
Indeed.
Way to have that one teed up. You didn't even hesitate. Good work.
I was ready.
Dustin, any final words of wisdom that you want to impart on any of the dads out there?
The most important thing you can give your kids is your time and your presence. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be the best dad. You don't have to be patient or wise, but you just have to be there with your kids because that's how you build that love and that trust and that foundation. And nothing can replace that. You can't buy them gifts. You can't get them a nicer house. You can't take them on more expensive trips. That might matter to us a little bit as older men. I used to think it mattered. I took a lot of those nice trips and I spent a lot of money on it. It was cool, but none of that feels as good as a book that I got for free from the library that I sit down and take the time to read with my son. And it doesn't matter to him whether the toy that I play with him is $100 toy, that I got from some cool company or whether it's a cardboard box. One of my good friends, a fellow dad, he's got 4 kids. Jay Osborne, if you're listening, hey buddy. He gave me an amazing piece of advice after Lucas's first Christmas. He said, the best thing that he's going to remember the most and want to play with after Christmas is the box. I said, what are you talking about? And then sure enough, the next Christmas, my son has shoved his toys into the corner and he's playing with the wrapping in the boxes for like an hour.
Back to that creativity, man.
He's
my
right.
daughter cuts them up, man. She makes like forts for her stuffed animals and everything out of all the boxes every time.
Yep.
All the time. It's amazing to watch them. Their minds.
Yeah. So less is more. Don't get them that fancy tablet where they can, watch movies and have all that, get them the most analog basic stuff and they'll figure it out themselves. And I guarantee you they're going to learn more from that than they will from, whatever cool fancy electronics you get.
Lincoln Logs and Mega Blocks.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, Joe's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great piece of advice, Dustin. So before we wrap, I just want to say thank you for sharing your story, man, being transparent. You've been through some difficult things and some very painful things. So I appreciate you sharing those on behalf of other people to learn from you. And I just, from all of us, the growth that we've seen in you too, just doing this and your commitment to really walking the walk, to put your money where your mouth is, so to speak, is just awesome. I think you are definitely one of the most intentional dads I know. and really pouring yourself into that. And so it's really inspiring to see, and it helps keep us working hard as well. So love you, man. So glad you're on this journey with us and contributing to the podcast and with your story as well. And yeah, man. So this will close it out for Dustin's story. You can follow him personally. He's real big on X. That's his place to find him. So what's your handle at X? Twitter, Twix.
Yeah, the Twix, exactly. It's at Dustin the Dad.
Dustin the Dad. All right. Yeah, you're all over there posting all the time, right? So
Yeah.
if you want to get a hold of Dustin, that's probably the best way to do it. Thank you for listening. We hope that this helped. And enough talk, dads. Let's get climbing. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Present Fathers Podcast. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Spotify to catch all of our amazing episodes. We will see you in the next one.